So far away, Lucas, where do you fall on the debate of SNES or SNES?
I'm definitely an SNES person.
I'm a SNES boy. It's pronounced SNES. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or SNES, or the SNES to you cool guys out there, was an incredibly popular video game system released probably a long time before a lot of the people watching this were born. Does that make you feel old, Lucas?
No, because it technically released before I was born.
Oh, okay.
Just about.
Just about. It's like, Joe, was it that thing you told me the other day about one of the actors in Miss Marvel? And they were like, oh yeah, I feel kind of old saying my favourite video game is the first season of Fortnite, and me and you just crumbled to dust like Indiana Jones.
It's like, no.
Just the fuck are we even doing? Anyway, despite immense interest in the console, the company making it, Nintendo, saw fit to only produce about 300,000 SNES systems for the people of Japan, which went about as well as you'd expect when about 3 million people wanted to get their hands on one on day one. So did you know about this, Lucas?
I wasn't aware of this, but obviously it's ringing very true to where we were at now with the chip shortages and like the PS5.
So you just want to explain that dead quick for people who maybe aren't familiar with the issues currently surrounding getting your hands on a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, is it?
Series X and S, but S is a bit more available because it's
an awful naming
convention
convention.
stuff. Just awful naming convention, yeah.
Bring back like naming conventions where like the console has a name that's distinct, like the Switch, the Wii, the the Dolphin.
So yeah, there's just, I mean, if people are like completely unaware, the entire world is dealing with like chip shortage problems, you know, due to pandemics and shit. So like, obviously, everyone is trying to get their hands on a limited supply. Means that all manner of technology are just waiting on like certain chips to be produced to go out, which means that just we're at a point where literal PlayStation and Xbox are turning around to their investors and being like, look, we would be selling more of these consoles if we could get more. Yeah, like if we could actually make more, we could sell them. But we're just limited to the amount of chips we can get. Yeah,
and it's that thing where they have to go out and explain. It's like, look, there's a global shortage of the things we use to make this device, and when it comes to like deciding which technology is more important to the function of society, video games are probably lower down on that list. And it's a decent comparison, but the story about the release of the SNES in Japan is just ridiculous. Because do you have any idea of how many NESs were sold, Lucas, in its entire life cycle?
I think the NES was like 60 something, and then the SNES was about 50 million.
Yeah, so they sold 60 million Nintendo Entertainment Systems, and then they decided to release 300,000 of the console that was a direct successor to it.
And it was like, I think it was like a 7 or 8 year gap between like the NES and the SNES. So people must have been like really hungry for a new console.
Well, they were, Lucas. And would you like to hazard a guess at how many pre-orders stores across Japan had for Super Nintendo Entertainment Systems?
I presume 300,000 if that's how many they made.
1.5 million.
Fucking hell.
So every single one of the consoles that they produced had already been sold 5 times over before it had even released, and Nintendo still didn't see any issue with releasing it.
Dear God.
Like, that's it. Every single one had already been sold 5 times over, and that's not including like the average man, woman, and child on the street who wanted one as well. And at that point, maybe delay it a little bit and make a few more, or don't sell 1.5 million of something you only have 300,000 of.
Yeah, maybe just sell the 300,000 you've got.
And that alone sounds bad enough, but it does get worse. And Lucas, what mistake could a company in that position make that would cause absolute chaos with the public?
Did they tell everyone they fucked up?
Yes. For some inexplicable reason, Nintendo decided to announce that they'd only made 300,000, but still were advertising it as something you could buy.
Oh, no.
And as you might imagine, when people who'd already paid for one, because the 1.5 million pre-orders, realised that there were only enough in existence for 20% of them to actually get one, let alone the people who wanted to walk in from the streets and just buy one, just absolute chaos unfolded in major cities across Japan. And Lucas, that alone sounds pretty bad, but what other mistake could a company doing this make that would cause even more hassle for consumers?
Don't know, did they like announce a blood sport where only 300,000 people come out?
No, they released it on a Wednesday.
Oh, no.
And that might not sound like a big deal to a lot of people watching this, but Lucas, what day historically does near enough every single video game or console get released on?
I think it's fluctuated over the years, but I think like Fridays, so that like people who work 9 to 5 can get their hands on it.
And play it over the weekend. And as you mentioned there, it's not a hard rule, but for the most part, most companies release their products on a Friday because then people can buy it and play it over the weekend. And this is such an observable phenomenon in Japan especially. The series Dragon Quest infamously is not allowed to release games on any day but Friday because people keep taking days off work to play it. It happens, like, I think, in the West to a degree as well. So I remember like when Grand Theft Auto 4 came out, and like a bunch of people just called in sick to go play Grand Theft Auto 4, and there's like, you know, around like Halo 3 caused something similar, people just taking the day
I was
off
about
work.
to say, I cannot tell you how many kids in my school just happened to be sick the day Halo 3 came out.
And that's the thing, and that's why you release on a Friday. And in regards to the release of the SNES, tens of thousands of people are reported to have taken that day off, which caused an estimated several million yen hit to the Japanese economy. But Lucas, it keeps getting worse because not only did those people take the day off work, they didn't get an SNES, so they didn't spend any money either. But in addition to not spending any money, they also caused traffic across major cities in Japan to grind to a halt as like they were driving to all the different stores.
They just wanted to get their hands on a Turbo Man.
Basically, that's what it was. And that's the thing that film's satirising, like, you know, people rushing in to get something there's a limited supply of. So let's just, like, you know, we'll just go over the details again. So Nintendo know that they sold tens of millions of NESs. They make 300,000 SNESs. They sell them 5 times over. They still market and advertise it as being a thing you can buy. They tell the public that, actually, no, that's all bullshit, you haven't got any. The entirety of Japan books the day off on a Wednesday to drive into cities and go buy it. There's none left for them to buy, so they keep driving around causing traffic jams. They get into fist fights to try and get the few SNESs that are on shelves available for sale. The Japanese economy takes a hit of several $1 million. And what do you want to think happened when all this kicked off?
Well, I'm assuming, like, people were mad at Nintendo.
Well, not just people, Lucas. The government. Because the Japanese government was not happy that tens of thousands of people took the day off work to go buy a game, and were even more unhappy that it resulted in a bunch of fistfights and like gridlock across cities. So what they did is they made a polite but very stern request of Nintendo that they not do that shit again. They basically sent Nintendo a very strongly worded suggestion that they don't do that shit again and only release consoles on a Friday. And for the most part, Nintendo have only released consoles on a Friday or a Saturday in Japan since, because they don't want to have that happen again.
I mean, maybe also just stop selling the console when you haven't got any stock left.
That's the thing. This is one of those scenarios where, like, it's hard to comprehend the idea of not being able to buy something in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
Like, with the existence of things like scalpers and eBay and the after-sale market, the idea that you literally cannot buy something. 'Cause like I said, like PS5s, you couldn't buy them in stores, but you could still get one. If you really wanted to, you could get a PS5.
If you wanted to give a dick at £1,000 for one, yeah.
But you could still get one, that's the thing. But like, and that's why I think stuff like this is so difficult to comprehend, that there was a point that you literally could not get it, but they were still advertising it. And that's amazing. Like, you can't buy one, but we're still going to advertise it. And then you have the company on the news like, what?
This story actually reminds me of something I went through myself when my parents turned around to me the year the Wii came out.
Okay.
I think I've mentioned on the channel before, but basically, like, we had a pre-order with HMV who can go fuck themselves, because the people in the store, when the console first released,
they sell it.
They sold them to them, even though, like, my parents had, you know, pre-ordered and put a deposit down on one.
Oh, did they do that thing where they arrived and then just someone complained at the well, I can see you've got one on the shelf, let me buy that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, they're pre-order ones, and the HMV just got greedy and sold them to customers there and then. And yeah, my parents just had to turn around and be like, we did pre-order you one, but yeah, HMV sold it anyway, and you don't have one for Christmas. Sorry. Like,
yep. I imagine there are plenty of people out there with a similar story. It's like, commiserate in the comments about your failures to get hold of like a hot new piece of tech that you're really excited about. Because the one for me is that I wanted an Xbox 360, but I was working class kid with not much money, so I saved up my pocket money, my birthday money, my Christmas money for 2 years straight, and then I traded in my PlayStation 2 with every single game that it had with it, and it hurts now to think back that my PlayStation 2, with every single one of my games, I got 50 quid for it. But that's besides the point. So I traded in every game I had, like everything I had that would allow me to play games, every penny I had to my name, and I got my Xbox 360. But I couldn't afford a game. So do you know what I did? Like for like 2 days, I just sat on the screen of the blades, switching between the blades, just looking at all the options that I had. And Lucas, can you imagine just anything sadder in your head than just like young teenage me with his like, you know, his shitter than now hair and his baggy oversized clothes and his skinny jeans, just like scrolling sadly through the blades, changing the options. And I just in my head thinking, I sold Devil May Cry 3.
I can imagine something as sad because I stared at the back of Twilight Princess for the Wii for like 3-4 weeks before it got the console.
No,
I just every day just sat there and read through the instruction manual like, yes.
One day I'll get to play it. And I'll still never forget because like a friend of mine lent me his copy of Gears of War. And that was the only game I had. And I remember I put it into the Xbox 360 and second one it chewed up the disc. You remember like back then, like the Xbox 360, you couldn't have it like stood up or something like that. Early ones couldn't stand up or lie down. I forget which one.
Oh, I can't remember that.
But I think that the very earliest ones, because I got like one of the very earliest ones that had been traded in, and it chewed up the disc, and I got through the tutorial mission, was like, oh wow, can't wait to play Gears of War. And then it read Ring of Death, and I was like, no! And I tried to take it back to the shop, and the guy was like, well, you bought it, it's your problem now. And thankfully, my stepdad was really big, and he went in and he complained he got it fucking fixed. But just little me, chat playing Gears of War. And the worst bit as well, I didn't have any batteries either, because I couldn't afford batteries for a controller.
Man, you should have just stuck with Devil May Cry.
I should have just stuck with Devil May Cry. It was like that really rough thing as well. It's like when I tried to play Gears of War, we want any batteries, and I was like, do you know that thing you used to do where you try to nick them out like the remote in the front room, but my mum was having none of it. So I could only afford like those like 24 packs of zinc batteries from Poundland, and they lasted like 30 minutes. And then you're a kid, you don't organise them, and it's like you're doing that thing where you're just like mixing and matching with batteries to try and play. And I was like, oh, it was rough. It was a rough time back then.
But Carl,
yes.
To like round this out,
yes.
Favorite SNES game?
Oh, it's Super Metroid. Easily, without doubt. What game do you think Karl likes most on SNES? Super fucking me. How about yourself?
I struggle between like essentially the big three of like Super Metroid, Mario World, and Link to the Past. Like those three games are they are essentially what you can boil down to like the most essential form of like perfect video games.
But I'm just going to bring it back to I just showed my tattoo though, which I'm guessing you can imagine, right? You laugh so you know what I was doing. There are probably people watching this.
I could tell, but my favourite thing is that we can green screen out half of that so people might not be able to tell what it is.
I get asked, not every day, but on a pretty regular basis, like what it is. And there's probably people out there right now going, oh, thank you, for fuck's sake. There's probably people out there who've been like annoyed about what my tattoo is for like years at this point. And I'll tell you what, we have like the Untitled side channel, don't we?
Yes.
If you've not plugged in this video yet, so we'll plug it now. And we have a bunch of side content we've made there. So maybe one of the things I might do for that, if we get some decent feedback to it, is I will show people a close-up of the tattoo, because it's still not finished yet. Because we had a pandemic and my tattooist had a baby, so I still need to go back and get the rest of it done.
Maybe we could do like just a video of showing off everyone's tattoos. I'm not sure
if Brad will show his off. Like
I don't know. I don't know if Brad and Isha have or how many they have.
I'm joking. Just the idea. Can you imagine if one day Brad just came in and he's had a big, massive tattoo that said like "Fact Fiend" on it?
Where do you think the Big Wankers logo is tattooed on Brad?
Oh man, I have met someone with a Lost Profits tattoo. That was a rough time. Yeah, maybe if people are interested, we'll do something like that. But I thought I'd mention because I know someone else going, that's what it is.
And where would people be able to find content like that, Carl?
Untitled side channel and the Patreon as well. Maybe we'll do something with it. But yeah, we try and listen to the feedback we get through the Untitled side channel and the Patreon. So yeah, let us know.